Grand Rising, Grand Arrival, Grand Return, peace and blessings to the righteous and repentant alike. I'm Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and I have another commentary or something hit me really, really hard yesterday, and just ever since the actual halftime show, and even before, like even the choice of Kendrick for the halftime show, right? All the way back to the whole Not Like Us and all this beef. I didn't assess the situation properly. And part of it is because of my experience and bias within the rap and hip hop industry. As I've mentioned several times, I worked inside the industry for probably like 10 years. I was on indie radio, playing independent artists, hosting shows on independent radio, and I moved around with a few different stations, doing a lot of local community type of stuff in PG County. And I work with artists. I've written songs. I've, organized stuff. I work with artists. And I was so dejected by the music industry when like I said, I always talk about the Drakeification of hip hop and what was promoted as commercial music was so horrific and horrendous to me that I had to remove myself from the energy because it was just way too toxic. Not only was it toxic for like females in general, and the lack of general respect for females in the industry, just people who were actually, they actually reflected the culture. There was a huge rejection of Black culture. Now, in my assessment, this really started with the Obama regime, because all of the rappers coalesced around Obama as if he were from our culture. And as a person who was from the land, I was really upset because, not that I didn't support Obama, because I did. I'm an Obama voter. I voted for him the first time. So it wasn't that I didn't support him. My problem was he wasn't Black. And because he was from Africa, and I was already of the firm assumption that I wasn't from Africa. That I was from the land, that I was from Maryland. Because when I was in college, my major was African American Studies, which I learned at a historically private white institution. And so, the whole demographics are really different. And I was able to really flesh that out and say, no, I wasn't from Africa. I found out about the slave ship manifest and how they were open source and all of that. And, I talked to my living relatives, and I gained my own personal philosophy about who I was and where I come from. And it didn't match what they were trying to teach us in these books. And so that I just rejected it. I didn't think about it again. But with the emergence of Obama, it made all these people go into this whole Black thing, and I just had a problem with it. I was like, well, he's really like African American, because like I have said before, my oldest daughter is half Nigerian. So she is really African American. And I would say that. I said, the only African American one is really you, because I'm an American. I use Negro. I preferred that term, but still, I was an African. I was a Negro American. I was a Black American. I wasn't an African American. And Obama was an African American, and I really I had a problem with the culture bringing him into our blackness, without considering the fact of the consequences that came from that. So then out of that, you have someone emerge like, not emerge, but evolve like a Kendrick Lamar, who is being told, we're from Africa. He's studying with these different Hebrew Israelites and NOI people, because that's what they do. They put you, if you are a person, a black person, American, a black American who questions the church in any way, they automatically have these two different camps set up for you to go to. One of them is the Nation of Islam camp, and the other one is the Hebrew Israelite camp. And basically, they can get you tied to one of these camps without too much, difficulty, because they're both telling you, hey, your culture is different, but it's still not here. It's still not tied to the land. Your culture is not tied to this land. Or in the case of Hebrew Israelites, yeah, it is tied to this land, but it's tied to Utah. Which is like, oh, okay, so I'm from the literal whitest place on earth. So that's supposed to like make it better, but that's literally like what we're talking about. And so seeing all this stuff playing out. Now, mind you, at this time, I've heard of Kendrick Lamar. I've heard of Black Hippie. I liked Black Hippie. I was friends with some of those people. But I didn't like Kendrick. I was never a Kendrick fan. Anybody will tell you, I've never listened to his music. I never bought none of his albums, and I was a CD buyer, purchaser. I was a music purchaser, and I was a music connoisseur. I didn't like his music. I didn't like it. I don't have any of his albums, like none of them. I respected the fact that he was acknowledged with that Pulitzer, but I understood that was political because Obama was trying to get credibility and clout within the community to make sure that he was. And also what they do to our people is, try to keep us boxed in. So it's like, keep us loyal to X, Y, and Z because they put us on. Like, that's another thing that these talented 10th Boulay types will do. And so I just kind of disregarded the whole thing. I didn't understand his message because I was from America and most of his message was pro, Africa. And I didn't vibe with that. I didn't vibe with that. And so I just did. And plus I'm a Southerner. So automatically Southerners in general are just, the culture of the South is so huge that especially at that time, and the Southern rap had, just had this whole evolution that it was kind of like, why do I need to listen to West Coast rap when I've got like all of these Southern rappers? But then at the same time, the Southern rappers were a lot of them were co-opted, due to all of this, gun smuggling and all this drugs and all this stuff was going on. So, anyway, I was just focused on my own culture, which I knew as a Southerner, as a, a person from outside Washingtonian, I was just focused on my culture and that was it. And as I saw things deteriorate, now mind you, I'm going to events, I'm hosting events, I'm on the radio, I have my own show, plus I'm on other people's shows and, that kind of stuff. I'm literally in this industry. And then at a certain point, I was just like, I cannot do this anymore in good conscience because look at where the industry is going. Now, mind you, I didn't listen to no West Coast rap. I didn't know nothing about what was going on out there. I didn't like Northern rappers either. I only listen to Southern rap. And so I was listening to like a 3-6 Mafia, like Project Pact. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff, like, as far as conscious culture, the consciousness was still of this whole street life. Because like I said, I was a hoodlum, okay? I was a hoodlum. I was out in the streets. Looking crazy, but still out in the streets nonetheless. And so I just didn't get it, right? And so when this whole, Super Bowl thing comes about for this year, all the way back when this beef started with Drake, I knew I was going to have a problem because, first of all, I even listened to Not Like Us when it first came out at all. I was just watching the commentary, the back and forth, looking at the lyrics, because I already had this in my mind that Kendrick Lamar was not representative of me due to this whole Black Lives Matter, Obama, influence. And so I'm very, very careful about what I let come into my ears because of how much I was involved in the music industry. And I know me, when I start advocating for an artist, for a song, for a genre, I don't stop. And so I'm just very careful about who I advocate for as a person, who I put my energy behind. That's one thing that I will say that I did learn from that process, was to carefully select who you put your energy behind. Because I love indie artists. I would listen to indie artists, but even the indie artists were copying what the mainstream artists were doing, so that they didn't overlap, or they started to overlap so much that their whole thing was, I just want to have a hit song so that I can, get into the industry and get a deal or whatever. And so I stopped listening to basically to any music I hadn't listened to prior to 2012. Basically, I didn't listen to new music. If anything, I was picking up new genres. I started listening to pop music a little bit, and I listened to a lot of oldies, a lot of 50s, a lot of 60s, just really diving deep into the older pop music and trying to figure out what is this America that these people want to return to? Because, as a person who supported Trump in 2016, especially over Hillary, who I knew what she was doing in Haiti was unacceptable, and what she had done all over the planet was unacceptable. I personally had no choice but to support Trump, because he was the only one who was who had success. These people weren't successful, and I've always been a business person. These people were not successful. I knew that they were getting all their money from government sources and government contracting, because again, as a person in DC, that's how everybody works. People who look successful, if they're from DC, 9 times out of 10, they got government money from somebody. There's all kinds of government money flowing around. Okay, so I'm very careful about what I put into my energy. And like I said, as a person who had no choice but to support Trump over Hillary, I went ahead and tried to figure out, what is this make America great again? Well, when was America great? What are these people talking about? So in immersing myself in the culture of the 50s and the 60s and the 40s even, and really trying to figure out what these people viewed as this great America, I gained a really good understanding of what people meant when they said that. And what it is, honestly, is that cultures weren't really mixed up. What's an example I can get? Okay, so take this for an example. Let's say that Aretha Franklin came out with a song. This happened. This is a true story. Let's say Aretha Franklin came out with a song. Well, instead of playing the Aretha Franklin song on the pop station, what they would do is they would have one of their artists, like Dusty Springfield, do a cover of it, and they played that song on their pop stations. So the message still got passed to everyone in the country, but it was from a messenger that looked like them. And this was in reverse too. There's songs that Dusty Springfield did that Aretha Franklin did a cover of. So this was going back and forth. People think that white people were stealing black people's music. No, black people were also doing covers of white people's songs. As a matter of fact, your favorite Earth, Wind and Fire song was first performed by some white people. You have no idea how many songs that we accept in the black culture as our songs was really done in the white culture first. You don't understand. It went back and forth. But the whole thing was the message of the song was purveyed by a messenger that the people accepted, that what people would accept. So the message got to everybody. It just got to everybody through a different messenger. And so that's what was happening. And so do I agree that that is the kind of culture we need to return to? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that's what was happening. The messenger to the culture matched, meaning you have a messenger, you have the culture, and the messenger matched the culture. I understood that as a philosophy, because what you don't have is stuff like what happened with this Super Bowl, because basically they essentially tried to, long story short, you did start to have artists with crossover appeal, a lot of crossover appeal, but that was more into the 80s. That was more into the 80s. But also in the 80s, you had more people mixing. So people don't understand, or they don't remember that in the 50s and the 40s, people didn't really mix. Loving versus Virginia. I mean, people weren't mixed. You didn't have mixed cultures. But what you did have is quite a few black people who, going back, further back, you had black people who could pass for white. And so a lot of what the silent generation, I talk about the boomers all the time. We don't talk about the silent generation and what they did. What the silent generation did is, if you could pass for white to avoid this segregation that was going on, for whatever reason, you might not even have white parents. You could just pass for white, because that's the way melanin works. Sometimes it's darker in people, sometimes it's lighter. If you could pass for white to provide a better life for your potential offspring, you would pass for white. So I always wonder, why does someone like Madam C.J. Walker have such appeal? Well, if you lived in a white culture, but you had Negro hair, you could change your hair using her products to fit into their culture. So the silent generation, who didn't sell us out any less than the boomers, that's what they did. If they could pass for whatever they could do to fit into proper culture, proper white culture, that's what they did. And this is not, hating on them in any shape, way, or form. This is just identifying where all this stuff comes from. Like, how far back does this problem go? Like, this is not a new problem. So, because the generation before that, silent generation is Pluto and Cancer. So the generation before that, which would have been Pluto and Gemini, they didn't do that. They knew who they were, Pluto and Gemini, knowledge, and they had access to, because Gemini is the library card, they had access to a world of knowledge, and they used that knowledge to make them money. So what the silent generation saw is that some people, even though they had the knowledge, were still facing all of this adversity as a result of their skin color. So their solution was, if I could pass for white, let me go live amongst white culture. That's what they did. Okay? So the boomers, seeing a lot of the boomers, starting with the boomer time, they didn't know that so many people in their community was actually Negroes, because you had Negroes who could pass, and these people had children, and their children looked white, much like a whole Patrick Mahomes situation. Their children looked white, and so the Negro parts just kind of disappeared. If you kept your head bald, as a man, if you kept a bald head, then nobody would ever know that you had Negro hair, because beards, even on black men, usually grow out straight. They don't grow out kinky. You can train, or you just don't have a beard. So if you can't see the hair on as a white person, not as a black person, because black people could always tell. But if you can't see the hair, on a person as a white person, you would just assume that they are like you. Especially if they act like you, they talk like you, they walk like you, they do like you. You don't even think about it. And so what we have now, as this has trickled down, all of these people who were passing in the silent generation, that integrated into white communities all across this country. Then in the boomer generation, they decided that let's have, I want to hear messages from people who look like me. Okay. Then the next generation you have, which is the Gen Xers, you have them saying, well, this whole wanting to only hear a message from people who look like me, they didn't like that, because in the industry, first of all, you had so many artists, probably more than we think, that actually have black in their bloodline. They have Negro in their bloodline. And also the time was changing. You can't forget the whole evolution of time issue of this. And so things were changing. The culture was changing. The culture, the quote unquote American culture, because it was being so monetized, was also being amalgamated, meaning brought together. So it wasn't so much distinction between white culture and black culture. And that's a lot of forces that were going on. So anyway, the point of the matter is, you get to, this current sort of age, Pluto and Capricorn, and Pluto and Capricorn is hard lines. Hard lines were drawn because you had people who were, I'm black and I'm from Africa, right? And then, but if you had some people like me who were saying, well, I'm not from Africa. And at first, people like me were very, very far and few between. But still, it was still enough of people that were saying stuff like that it actually, it started to pick up traction. And now you see where it has come to, and the research started coming out. People started to, do their genealogies and really dig into it and asking these questions and all of this stuff. You also see, like I said, this. So to take advantage of that, what the Democrats did was try to clamp down, because remember, there's the natural evolution and then there's the revolution. The revolution is always televised because the revolution is taking place over or around the evolution. So as things are naturally evolving, the revolution is trying to clamp down and control the narrative. So while you have people naturally evolving and asking questions about where they're from and, remembering the things their grandmother told them and so on and so forth, you have the revolution clamping down and saying, no, you're all from Africa. Everybody with black skin is from Africa. Because they had to do this because they had to keep black people supporting Obama. That was how he got his energy. He got into office because there was praying grandmothers all around the country praying for him, using their energy to get him in office. Once you have that kind of power, you never want to let it go. So the way that they did that was by nationalizing propaganda. So you had those same praying grandmothers that got these people in office. Now they're being controlled by the media 24/7 with the whole Al Sharpton, bringing back the nostalgia, all kinds of Tavistock, y'all call it MK Ultra, but it's really Tavistock Institute. All these little Tavistock Institute programming mechanisms. So you have somebody like me in 2000, he was elected in 2008. So by 2012, now mind you, 2012, there was a big shift in the energy. But really, as I discovered from the Tzolk'in cycle, it was really started in 2005. By 2012 is when you started to see a big, huge shift in the energy. This was about, I would say, halfway through the Pluto and Capricorn cycle, right? You start to see a real shift in the energy when you get into the last degrees of Capricorn. Why is that? Capricorn, tarot cards, on the major arcana side is the Tower, it's the Empress, and it's the Star. So by 2012, when we're wrapping up the Pluto and Capricorn cycle, you have the Star that is starting to emerge, which was birthed through the Tower, which would have been the start of the cycle, and then, which about 2008 was the start of that cycle, and then it went through the Empress, through the women, and then you have the Star being born. Okay, so around 2012, that's when the propaganda ramped up. And so people who were, and that was the start of Obama's second term. And so that's when a lot of the horrible stuff that got implemented from his cycle, meaning the whole LGBT and all the first part of the cycle was kind of chill. That second part of the cycle was not chill. It was anything but chill. It was very, very aggressive, trying to force people into this whole Africa thought process. And so I never agree. I remember even saying to people at the time, like, I don't think I was ever a slave. And that was a huge, like, statement. So by the time 2016 comes around, you have a bunch of people who are confused because they hear everyone in the media telling them they are from Africa, as far as black people are concerned. And the white people can't figure out what's going on either. But as far as black people are concerned, you have a whole bunch of people saying you are from Africa. But then you have these, kind of fringe outsiders saying, no, I'm from the land. I'm a Native American. Or in the case of the Hebrew Israelites and the NOI people, both, now their position is, oh, America is the promised land. They're evolving too. Not naturally, but just because the research becomes more available, and they're like, oh shoot, we gotta try and stay ahead of it, because what the religious organizations will do is they will try to stay ahead of something by co-opting it. Now, what does this have to do with Kendrick Lamar and the Super Bowl? Because you may think that I've gone all the way off, right? 7 years ago in 2016, now mind you, this is the end of the Obama scenario, all this. 7 years ago in 2016, one of the songs that was featured at the Super Bowl was released along with a video for that song. Now, mind you, I just said before, I don't like Kendrick Lamar. I didn't ever listen to his music. All this time is going by. I'm just becoming more and more cynical of all people who call themselves African Americans, people who call themselves black, people who are, drown themselves in black culture. Black culture becomes Wakanda eyes. I'm disillusioned from all of this stuff because I'm like, no, I am from the land. Like, I am just really doubling and tripling down on that because I already had my genealogy and I knew that was true. And what people were saying, I knew from my own genealogy was not true. So I'm just discounting all these people, all of just the entirety of black culture. I have just separated myself from, because it was so enriched and inundated with this whole concept of being from Africa, which I rejected. Personally, on my own, I rejected it, okay? One of the songs that was featured at the Super Bowl is called Humble. Now, I never heard this song. Again, I'm not listening to black music. I'm not engaging in black culture. If anything, I'm just sticking with DC culture. I'm making my money. I got kids, I'm not involved in none of this stuff. So yesterday, I was like, what is that song? Because I keep saying it now. Be humble and sit down. Like, and why would Kendrick say that to the entirety of the world? Be humble. Sit down. What was he trying to say? What was the message conveyed with that? And this is a very controversial part of his performance, because you have the people in the American flag colors, and a lot of people have interpreted him being in the middle of the flag as him splitting the flag. Now, I already said that's not how I interpret it. I interpret it as him wrapping himself in the flag. Because when you're from this land and as an American, you realize, oh, all of this stuff that's here is mine. Okay? Not, oh, you're supposed to give me 40 acres and a mule because of slavery. No, I don't know who that's supposed to go to. I was not a slave. Okay, so I don't know this whole 40, and we did the research on the 40 acres and a mule and General Tecumseh and all of that stuff in our War 1812 video. So I also have a lot more like specific knowledge about these things now than I had even with a degree in African American studies, because the way they taught it was not from the perspective of black people being from America. It was a perspective of Africans in America, which is totally different. I'm not an African in America. I'm an American. Anyway, long story short, I looked at the video yesterday, Humble, okay? I posted it, I shared it on my channel. In 2016, Kendrick was making the commentary about these different religious organizations and how they were manipulating Black people while simultaneously removing us from the picture. And basically, literally telling us to have a seat because we're not smart enough to know what any of this stuff means, to do our own research, to interpret our own history. Now, why do I say that? So if you look at the music video, a couple things stand out. First of all, in the very first scene, basically, he's dressed in, some people will call it Catholic, the garments, I can't remember what they're called, but the garments that they wear in the Catholic Church, but I recognize them as Orthodox garments because honestly, they look like to me, they look more like the Orthodox garments than the Catholic garments. And that's the whole nother thing, I'm not going to get into that, but they look like the Orthodox garments to me. And so, but, so he has on the whole thing that the priest wears in Orthodox church. I don't think they wear these in the Catholic church. Not the same. Some of them do. They're different. But he has on the Orthodox garments, but he still got on a little, like a beanie almost on his head. And I was like, oh, so he knows about this Orthodox stuff or this Catholic stuff. At least he's familiar with it because he's wearing the garments and he's in a church, clearly in a Byzantine style church, like a big Catholic church. Remember, Catholic and Orthodoxy is really very similar. And so I was like, that's interesting. He also has a bunch of Black men dressed up in like NOI with the hats and all that stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. He's talking about Islam too. What else does he have? He has a bunch of Black people sitting at a table like Jesus and his, like the Last Supper. I'm like, wait a minute. He talking about everybody. But he's got Black people in all of it. It's like, you can find us there if you look. Like, you know what I mean? That's the commentary. Like, and also a lot of people saying that they know, they need to be humble and sit down and say, you know what, maybe I got this wrong. Maybe I don't know this. Maybe that. It's a lot of people out here claiming to know stuff. And honestly, I've debunked so much of what people claim to know just on this channel. These people don't know anything, honestly. And I don't purport to know anything either. I just do the research and present it. And I always say, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and say, I might have misinterpreted that wrong. Let's add this, update this to our understanding. Okay, I'm about to have to do that on something oh Lord. Anyway, I just don't even want to talk about that right now. I'm talking about Kendrick. So I'm watching this video and I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh my God. I was wrong about what I was seeing in the culture. Because I didn't give him a chance and listen to his music and come to my own conclusion, which I didn't. I'm saying it right now. I never listened to Kendrick Lamar music. I didn't like it, what I heard. All I saw was the publicity and stuff around it, and I thought it was stupid, and I didn't participate. I'm telling you right now, that's what I did, because all the people I saw supporting him was people I did not like, and I did not want to be affiliated with. And I missed the whole thing. I missed the whole cultural shift that happened in the Black community when people started to say, no, we can find ourselves in these stories. I missed it. And I was in tears this morning because culture is so meaningful to me. It's so powerful. It's something that you can't pretend. You can't imitate. Either you have the culture or you don't. And I completely missed the cultural shift in people, in Black people. And so as a result, I've been completely disconnected from the culture for 8-12 years. I literally was outside of the culture because I just threw the baby out with the bathwater. I had no idea that there was someone out there preserving the culture in the mainstream from their own platform. I had no idea, because what he's saying in that video is exactly what I'm saying right now, what I've been saying. I didn't know that there were other people saying it from their own point of excellence, of course, but I had no idea it was being said at all. I totally missed it. I totally missed it. I allowed my position in my culture to be co-opted by people who hate me. Whereas I could have been spending my dollars to support Kendrick, where I could have been, advocating for him and for people like him, all of these lyricists and whatnot. I could have been spending my energy supporting our men and what they were doing. And instead, I just walked away. That's like that's the amount of disloyalty in that is I don't even have words for it. It's hugely disloyal. And as a person who prides myself on loyalty, wow, that's hugely disloyal. And so as I'm, trying to process this whole thing, here comes the Super Bowl. So here I am watching the Super Bowl. I've been calling this for weeks. Ever since they announced Kendrick, I said, no, this is the crowning of our community. This is the re-emergence of our community. This is like the apex of Black culture being brought to the stage, and it's symbolizing this whole spiritual evolutionary thing. I missed it. It already happened. The spiritual evolution it already happened. The crowning of our culture already happened. And I just missed it because it was co-opted by these communists. And as a result, I missed it. Right? And so it doesn't matter to me. Once I become aware of an issue, I'm going to defend it to the death, because that's what I do. I'm a warrior. And so I'm on the internet and I see all of these conservative Republicans, these MAGAites, right? And they are trashing this Super Bowl performance as DEI. And they're trashing Kendrick Lamar. And they're trashing Black culture is what they're doing. They're trashing Black culture and saying, no, there's only American culture. Basically. And American culture is old white people singing songs from the 50s. That's what they're saying American culture is. And I lose it. Like I'm snapping on these people on Twitter all day, ever since Sunday. People are saying stuff and I'm like, no, you're wrong. You weren't the audience for that. Everything is not going to be for you. That was a message specifically for Black people who are from this land. That was a very specific message. Y'all just got to participate and witness this history. That's what it was. Instead of that being understood, these people decided to double down on trashing rap music, trashing Black history, trashing Kendrick and his family, trashing his message, trashing everything without even understanding the culture and having an idea for the culture that they're trashing. So I make this prediction now. White Americans are going to have their culture stripped from them. It's going to be completely stripped from them because we did not do that. When Black America was down, we did not trash white culture. We supported white culture. We integrated white culture. What I mean, Bobby Caldwell, Tina Marie, we didn't turn these people down because they weren't our color. Most people didn't even know Bobby Caldwell wasn't black. They had no idea. Average White Band, people love that song. Play That Funky Music, White Boy. Black people love that song. When black culture was separated, we still accepted white people into our culture. Look at Miley Cyrus, the recent of look at Miley Cyrus, look at Halsey, look at Post Malone. All these people, they came in kind of through the hip hop whatever genre, and then they tried to segregate out to their own genre. You can't do that. You can't use and abuse black culture to make your money and to get our energy and then take it back over to white culture and integrate it as if you was never integrated within black culture. You can't do that. And we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We brought you in. We was cool. Like, again, this whole thing with Kendrick. On GNX, he features the whole Hispanic culture pretty prominently throughout the whole album. Along with black culture, he's featuring this other culture. The beginning of the Super Bowl performance featured the singing that references that. So he featured it. He didn't forget it. He didn't pretend like he wasn't now trying to expand out culturally, because that's what he's doing. He's trying to expand out culturally. Now, a lot of people are upset at him for this, whatever the case may be. I don't care. Everybody can grow and evolve as they want. Nobody can tell you how you can evolve culturally. That's nuts. Totally insane. So here you have him trying to expand out culturally and not forgetting that, and making sure he features this prominently in his performance. It's a very opening thing. And even in that song, Be Humble, it starts out sounding like a rock song. I was like, what? That's kind of rockish, And then it goes into the hip hop part. But still, it starts out with this whole rock influence. Now, none of these conservatives, none of these MAGA people, none of these Republicans, not none of them, most of them did not make a single solitary effort to understand what was going on. All they did was complain and basically tell all of the black people who they were just championing, oh, black people have finally woken up. They got off the Democrat plantation, this and that, and basically put them on the Republican plantation. Oh, your culture sucks. Your industry sucks. Your artists suck. Oh, yeah, they had all black dancers, but they suck. Like everything. Like, oh, who cares? Why didn't have no diversity in their dancers? Why didn't have no white dancers? I didn't see a single white dancer out there. So all of this goodwill and sentiment and fake integration y'all was trying to promote, you just flushed down the toilet, completely flushed it down the toilet by saying all what you said about Kendrick. One influencer in particular who is particularly egregious, I was going on her bad, don't care. She tried to bring out the fact that, two of them, let's start with the girl. She tried to say, now mind you, she already said she didn't like it. That's cool. And I said, you weren't the target audience, no problem. She gonna come back and say, well, this is the reason why I didn't want Kendrick. He's pro-abortion. He's Democrat policies all the way up. And I was like, so yesterday, I said, so you are commenting on black culture, because to say that a black person is pro-abortion is commenting on us culturally. And not at all accounting for the fact that is a cultural thing that was taught to us. Because it's a cultural thing. Planned Parenthood, everyone knows Margaret Sanger hated black people. So if black people's culture is abortion, you shouldn't comment on that culture. And the reason why you shouldn't comment is because black people we voted against that. We voted for Trump. A lot of black people voted for Trump. Votes are private, so they don't have to tell you. A lot of black people voted for Trump over these issues, these very issues, okay? So to say that you don't like Kendrick because he's pro-abortion, while this man has 2 children and an old lady, that's not what that is. You're commenting on the culture. You don't understand the culture. You don't understand the culture. I don't know you don't understand the culture. You don't understand the culture. Now, I'm not going to justify or anything that, it's not necessary. You just don't understand the culture. The other one, particularly egregious, was one of these primary influencers that had he used the word black as a pejorative, and I just changed it to an American. He said Democrats. He said all Kendrick Lamar's supporters or Kendrick Lamar is a Democrat. All his managers are Democrats. All his dancers were Democrats. Now, how he could possibly know this is beyond my understanding, and it's something I can't possibly comprehend, right? So I just changed the word Democrat to American. Kendrick Lamar is an American. All his managers are Americans. Are you telling me that he's not allowed to be an American? He could only be a Democrat? Because he voted Democrat, that makes him less of an American? Is that what y'all want? Is that what y'all are saying? Is that what y'all, these conservatives, is that what they believe? Because that's what they've said. That's what they've said. And so, I don't know why they would say this, but I will say one thing, and one thing for sure. I will never, ever, ever, and I never have, and I never will vote Republican down ballot. Never. I'm going to vote down ballot for the people who have voted for my interests, whether they be Republican or Democrat. Now, we know the problems with the Democrats, so that may not mean anything because they may not be able to return. But I know one thing, I'm going to seek out candidates who are going to vote for my interests as an American. Black Americans have political interests too. They have, to say that American culture does not include black culture, because that's what they're saying. They're saying American culture is culture that is only reflective of whites. That's what they're saying. Now, when I heard other people saying this, again, I've been totally outside of the culture for like 12 years. When I heard black people saying this, I was like, I don't see it, man. I don't get it. Like, I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing we have American culture, and American culture is, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. No, these people were right. They were right. These Republicans and these conservatives, these people believe that American culture does not include black culture. American culture is separate from black culture. It's not separate. Kendrick had the #1 song in the country. Not like Us just won 5 Grammys. It was the #1 song in the country. The country. Of course he should headline the Super Bowl. Like, I just don't understand this. Y'all were okay when it was like, oh, he's making fun of Drake, and Drake is a PDF file. But as soon as it's like, oh, but you can't also be black. Whoa, that's black. We don't do this black stuff over here. You could only be American. Wait a minute, but I'm a black American. I'm native to the land. So my Americanism is not different from your Americanism. And again, like I said, black people have no problem with white culture. You know how many Swifties are black? a bajillion, okay? Black people have no problem with white Americans' culture. But when white Americans are given the opportunity to embrace our culture and say, you know what, I didn't understand this, but he did have the number one song in the country. He did win 5 Grammys. He's clearly representative of America. To think that Kendrick Lamar does not represent the best of American culture is enraging. It is enraging to think that Kendrick Lamar does not represent the best of American culture. And these white conservatives have, their culture is going to be, conservatism, as you know it, is dead. These Republicans are dead. Their culture is dead. The culture they were trying to bring in is dead. The creator will not stand for this. All you had to do was say, wow, that was a Super Bowl performance to remember. That's it. You could have stayed out of it because it wasn't your section of the culture to comment on. But to say that Kendrick Lamar does not represent the best of American culture, I got a problem. I got a problem. Because what I saw was the best of American culture laid out in front of us. American culture can be black or it can be white. It does not have to be black and white. It's American. And until white conservatives do right by black culture, everything you touch will die. I don't have to do anything. You're doing it to yourselves by rejecting American culture that happens to come with a black face. I am disgusted and disturbed. And luckily for me, Trump does not share your racism. Luckily, thank the Lord, Trump doesn't represent your racism. You guys are racist. And your culture is going to crumble. All you had to do was clap. Shut up and clap. Sit down. Be humble. See y'all in the next video.